What's up, guys? We're going to look at our final project for quarter 3, and I'm going to give you two choices. One is mathy, one is languagey, but they're both equally difficult, I think, and they both use some stuff from this quarter. So first, the mathy one is a quadratic solver. If you have a quadratic function like this, you usually want to find the zeros where it hits the axis or it hits the ground if it's describing a projectile or something. And we have this quadratic formula that I'm sure you've seen to solve it. That works, and I gave you some code as a template. So if I hit run, it's going to take the inputs, put them through the formula, and output the answers. The formula has two versions because right here there's a plus or minus, so it splits off into two possibilities. So let's say if you were going to have x squared plus 6x plus 8, then it gives you two nice simple integer answers, and we're good. But sometimes that doesn't work. If they try to put something that's not a number at all, you're going to crash, and you should expect that. Users always do weird things, so you should tell them, hey buddy, try again, instead of crashing. But a little more interestingly is some combinations of these coefficients don't result in a real answer. Like this one, if you try to take the square root of something negative, well, it's not going to happen. So we have to handle that in a different way. First, you want to tell them, hey, we can't take the square root of a negative number. But then, if you really set everything else up and you're ready to go on to the hard stuff, we can by using what's called imaginary numbers. And if you've seen that in your math class, then you're probably ready for that step. But here's what we got. I'm going to give you 3 things that are required, you got to do, and then I'm going to give you 3 things that are optional. I would recommend you pick one, but if you're on a roll, maybe you can do all 3. We want to change this code to handle inputs of any kind with no error. Just ask again. We want to modify that code to acknowledge that, hey, we can't do the square root of a negative until you do. And at the end, we want to say, would you like to do another, instead of just stopping. So there are a couple possibilities of making it nicer. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can solve those complex roots. Complex roots have an imaginary number called I, or sometimes J, that looks something like that. And if you're really into it and you're doing well, you could simplify that by, sometimes they're all even, for example, and so you can divide by 2. A related thing is when there's going to be a square root, it's nicer to just keep it in a square root, to just say square root of 5 instead of some long, ugly decimal that nobody knows what that is anyway. So both of these steps involve a little bit of quarter 1 stuff, actually, which is going back and forth between strings and values. That's not too bad. You just have to know when. And then the final thing is a quarter 3 idea to keep a cache, to say, hey, I've solved that one already. I don't even need to do it. I remember a minute ago you asked me this combination, so here it is. And that's nice in all kinds of functions or all kinds of actions of any kind. If you've done it once before, there's no need to do it again. So that's one option. The other is, like I said, a language-based thing. So I have another class reading the Hobbit, and in the Hobbit we have runes, and the runes are secret messages on the dwarven map telling how our ancestors escaped the dragon and how we might get back in. And this says, stand by the gray stone when the thrush knocks, and the setting sun with the last light of Durin's day. Hang on. I got a message on my phone. The last light of Durin's day will shine upon the keyhole. So we've got secret stuff, but these are not made up for the book, these are real runes that were used in English, old English, like maybe pre-Beowulf, before the Roman alphabet that we use now. Now, that is still related a little bit, and you'll see occasionally like this guy looks like an R, and it pretty much is an R. And this guy does not look like a D, but it is. However, there are a few that don't line up perfectly. Like this one is the V sound, the TH sound, but they don't need a combo of TH, they have it all in one. Like this word, the, that you see several times, is really common, and it's only 2 letters in runes where it's 3 for us. So I give you a bit of code to get started, just like the other one. And just like the other one, it's really basic. And it works if everything is perfect. I've got a dictionary with rune, letter to rune, letter to rune. Then if you run it, you type a word, and it shifts it into runes. Okay? Now that's fine, and that turns out pretty much how you would write the word hello. But for other things, it's not. For example, if we have a space, well, it can't handle the space. We got to tell it what a space is. If you notice, they used a dot. Spaces are actually pretty new in writing. A lot of ancient texts had other methods of distinguishing words, or just none. They would squish it all together. And so we want to use a little dot, a bullet point style dot between words. Another thing is you want to be able to handle those non-perfect correlations, like this is not in my dictionary because I'm going single letters, but we want to have a line of code that says, hey, if you see a TH, then it should probably be that letter. It's called a thorn. That rune is called a thorn. And that's a really important one in the Hobbit because a lot of characters are named Thorin, Thrain, Thror, things like that, which are the initials we see at the end in a kind of pretty way. So that's the basics. You want to be able to handle unexpected characters, maybe a try except, maybe the get method, multiple possibilities. We want to put a dot to handle the space, and we want to do the TH because that's really common and important. Okay? But there are a couple others, just like the previous quadratic option. There are a couple other possibilities if you want to really make it good and really make it pretty and really make it robust to be able to do multiple things and do them well. So one is you could handle both directions. We could go from runes to letters or letters to runes. And you don't have to type the whole dictionary again. There are ways to loop through it and take the keys and values and switch them and build a new one. Okay, so don't type everything again. We don't want to do that. Another thing is there are more exceptions. Now that thorn rune is by far the most common, but there are a couple others, like this little guy is the ing sound, which shows up once in here, setting sun. Where is it? Right here. Setting sun. So we want to be able to handle those too, even though they're not as common as the. And some of the vowels are pretty weird, but that's how languages go. And then finally, just like the other one, we can keep a cache of work we've already done. If we've seen the word the, and we see it for the 5th time, we should be able to say, hey, I've seen that word. I don't need to look it up. I don't need to think about the letters. I don't need to look in, hey, is this thing 1 or 2? I should say, look, that's the. I know that's the. 1 step instead of 3. So we can do a cache making another dictionary and using it before we even zoom in to look at the letters themselves. Now, if you're really good and you're really interested in languages and you really want to learn more, let me know, because I've been checking this stuff out when we read The Hobbit in my other class. So that's it. I want to make a little 10-minute video doing an overview of these 2 choices. You only have to do one, and you only have to do the absolute basic steps, to get the grade. These other ones are extra. These other ones are basically when you're on a roll, when you're really doing code well and creatively thinking through problems, you're always thinking ahead. And so you're always thinking, well, what if this happened? What if this happened? So there's your chance to do it. Now I'm going to end this video here, but we'll talk about it a lot in class over the next few days as we get going. Thanks.